Going out live.
We are live.
All right, I'm recording. No, I'm not. Hold on. New updates, new problems. Here we
go. The industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa. This is the American Greed Factory.
Why relate to a share capacity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to death. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
And
Matt.
All four of us are here on a Tuesday afternoon on a hot. Here we got thunderstorms. I don't know what you guys got there. It doesn't look like you're having a lot of weather.
It's fine.
From the looks of it, it's going to rain at some point.
Yeah.
Which is cool because I'm outside, so that could be good.
Just in time for summer.
Yeah.
We had the lightning warnings here. Seek shelter immediately. It's like, well, okay, I'm in my house.
So done and done.
But yeah. So here we are again. Talk about some fun stuff.
I saw a bunch of racing the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah? You want to talk about Azerbaijan first or the Indy 500?
I'll talk about the Indy 500 because that's probably the most I've forgotten about.
Okay.
I took Sunday off so I could watch a wrestling event. They had the AEW Double or Nothing, which was great. But what was going on before that happened, it was the Indianapolis 500. So I got to watch that, and a bunch of interesting things about that is that the guy who won it, Helio Castroneves, is his fourth time winning it, and it's the first race he's done this year.
Okay, that's good.
Because
show up with the championship.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing about the Indianapolis 500 is it's like kind of like almost separate from IndyCar, even though it's a part of it. Is that like, so just because you're a part of IndyCar doesn't mean you get to race in the Indianapolis 500. You have to qualify to get into the Indianapolis 500. And like, there's a guy, Will Power, who's like a former champion. Like he almost like lost out. Like he was in the last row. He almost got kicked out of the Indianapolis 500 because he wasn't going fast enough. And so yeah, but also there's 35 cars on the track, and there's a lot of like independent teams that come up, just like spring up and try to get into the Indianapolis 500. And Helio Castroneves, who's a veteran of this race, 46 years old, he got like kicked out of one of his team last year, so he's an independent guy now, and somebody, he got a team together to do this Indy 500 and he won it. So yeah, I guess I never really knew like what's the strategy about the Indy 500. And I guess there's a lot of like fuel saving stuff going on. So it's like not necessarily advantageous to just be out front because you're going to be using the most fuel while you're just punching the air for everyone behind you. So,
okay.
So there's a fuel strategy thing that goes on. You basically just got to like hold out to like the end of the race and then just like kind of just make your move like right at the end, which is what he did with like 2 laps to go. He passed the guy in the lead to win the race. So last year there was a lot of weird brake shit, I remember, because like people's brakes kept catching on fire and setting the cars on fire. This year the brakes just didn't work.
Okay.
So the Indianapolis so the Indianapolis 500 is it's just a big oval, so you basically there's no braking. So you just like to go in the corners, you just lift off the gas, you just coast, but you don't brake. You just lift off. But the only time you do use your brakes is when you go into the pits. So what people are suggesting is that like some of the teams had like pulled the brake pads like further away from the brake discs, so there'd be no like accidental like activation of the brakes during the race that would slow them down. So then when they come into the pits, it's like the brake pedal just goes all the way to the floor and the brakes don't hit the brake that's all. And they sit there pumping it, and then eventually the brakes kick in and it just like whips the car around. And so like a dude crashed, like it happened like 3 times a race. There was crashes in the pit lane as they're coming in the pits, and a bunch of people got penalties for speeding in the pits because their brakes didn't work.
Yeah. They're not trying to speed in the pits. Stop.
Yeah, there was pretty funny analysis. Like the guy was explaining this. He's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, good for them. Fuck them. They did something dangerous and they got fucked for it. So that was funny.
Yeah.
Also, the interesting thing about the Indy 500 is it counts as double points, so it counts as 2 races. So
Okay.
and it's the largest. I believe this is the largest event since the pandemic. There was 104,000 people there, and it wasn't even full.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've been to that track before. It's massive.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, you can just put grandstands everywhere. I think it's because at one point I said like there's, I think it was 200 or 300 laps, or I think it was 200 laps, and I thought it was like, isn't this Indianapolis 500? Like, why are they only going 200 laps? Like, oh, it's the course is longer than longer than a mile. It's 500 miles, not 500 laps. So it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that thing's fucking huge.
It's still the fastest car race in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
I think they're doing like 230, 240 miles an hour consistently.
Yep. The whole race.
Yeah, the whole time.
That's why it is also the most. It's one of the most deadliest races in the world.
Yeah, I think there's only 2 companies that make engines for them.
Yeah, it's
I
just
know
Honda and Chevy.
Chevrolet and Honda, and it's a lot more standardized, it seems like.
Well, it's a spec series, so everyone essentially has the same car.
Yeah.
And then, like, basically it's how you set it up. But still, if your team doesn't have a whole lot of money, then you're kind of fucked, because there's a whole lot of, like, the more people you have, the more people you can specialize on things, the better you're just going to do a little weekend. So it's still a money thing, but hey, to get in, it's a pretty low price to get in for a racing series. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We were on the pits, and it was in the late 80s. And we got to go just like stand next to the pits. It was qualifying. It wasn't the actual race,
Yeah.
which was even wilder because people are trying, I mean, these cars are just, and they had people like you could camp in the infield at that time. Now you can't, but you used to be able to. And it's the whole place just reeked of alcohol, like methyl alcohol, like everything. Just the smell coming off those cars, like Jesus Christ. I don't know what they run on now, but I know back then it was making
E85.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they're try to be environmental friendly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the other funny thing is actually I'm gonna talk about, so there's a crazy pit failure where they let a guy go and his tire just fell off on the pit exit.
Oops.
That he went right into the wall, but he like went in at an angle that was like, he didn't go like flat into the wall, he like angled into it. So, and he was coming out of the pit, so he wasn't going full speed. So, but like, yeah, his wheel just fell off, and then it started to roll back on the track, and a guy punted that fucking tire with his car. Luckily that tire just kind of went straight up and into the grass. Like, but you're like, oh man, that's gonna hit somebody, but luckily it didn't. But the guy it hit, it was Connor Daly, also known as the Flying Mullet, who is from Indianapolis, and so he's the hometown hero, and he was leading the race for like 40 laps, and that kind of fucked his whole race.
Yeah.
Because it bent like the front nose of his car.
Yeah, I remember they had rabbits get out on the track one year, and it caused a big problem.
Jesus.
I mean, they were just blown into vapor, but I don't know if it screwed one of the cars up, but I think they had to pit and do a caution lap because they wanted to check the cars. But yeah, that happened once. That was years ago too. But
And then the other thing I found kind of annoying, but also funny, and I bet I'm sure this started in NASCAR and Indy adopted it, but I haven't really been paying attention to Indy. I only vaguely know of IndyCar this whole time, so maybe they've been doing it the whole time. But the way they call out like the cars and the drivers is very annoying. It's like, here's Jeff Teetle in the Pilotech OTC 36-hour relief car. And it's very annoying to watch, but if you're advertising for that car, that's very friendly. It's like you're gonna get a call out the whole fucking race.
yeah, because they're gonna say the entire like product and descriptor, and here comes Mylanta number 47, 10-hour relief. Mylanta. Oh, he's in the wall.
So
Looks like he took it.
So I don't know if they started doing that or they've always done that, but I know NASCAR always does that, but they're just no shit. That NASCAR is just that kind of shillery. So
Yeah. What they
That's
say the
too
new
big.
safety regulations for NASCAR, where the drivers' jackets had to be wrapped in more advertisement to protect them. They had something where it was just like, just a giant capsule for boner pills or something to face the driver. So.
And then this weekend we had the Azerbaijan GP
Yes.
for Formula One, which, man, what a weird and interesting race.
I got to watch that one on my phone, so. Yeah, that was there was a lot of stuff going on in that race.
So Baku is a street race, which basically means they just block off certain areas of traffic, and it's like literally when they're not racing there, that's literally like where the traffic goes.
Yeah.
But unlike Monaco, they have like 5 wide lanes and they have really long straights, and there's not a whole lot of curves. But there's not a lot of runoff areas. So if you fuck up, you're going into the wall, which that's always the downside of a street course is like there's no room for error. So you have a lot of weird shit like that. So especially in qualifying, the qualifying got red flagged 4 fucking times. and Charles Leclerc got on pole again because the session got red flagged and he had the fastest lap. But it was this time is Yuki Tsunoda that wrecked and not him. So so yeah, it's Leclerc started on pole and he led for about 4 laps, and then but because there's 2 DRS areas here and long straights, the Ferraris just had no chance and immediately got passed by Lewis Hamilton and then by the Red Bulls.
Yeah.
And then not too much happened. It was kind of Gasly was doing some stuff, but you get to about lap 32, and you had Lance Stroll, who was trying to go really long on his tires and do an overcut because he was starting in last place, and he was in 4th at the time, I think, or 5th, which is pretty crazy because everyone pitted, but he hadn't yet. And then on a straight, his rear tire just exploded, and he just kind of spun around. He kind of nicked the wall, but he was like, okay. But like you could hear the driver radio in the onboard. You could hear his like the fear in his voice as like the cars are passing by him at like 250 miles an hour. He's like, red flag, get me out of here. Because they just lock off those streets. So he's literally just in a tunnel and the cars are going by him at the fastest speed they can. And so, yeah, that would be pretty scary. And it still took him a while to like even do like yellow flags and shit and like slow things down. And then eventually a safety car came out. And then people are doing some pit strategies. And then you had the restart. I can't remember what happened at the restart. I think Vettel got past like Gasly and stuff like that. And Vettel was also started in 11th. And he climbed his way back. He did another overcut and climbed his way back. But then it was still the Red Bulls 1-2, and then Hamilton behind them. And then you get to about 5 laps to the end of the race, and then Max Verstappen's tire explodes on a straight.
That one where I got out and was kicking the car.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
And this time, it still took him a while to like react to it, but then they red flagged the race because this is the second time a tire just kind of exploded and they didn't. The Red Bull guys said like, hey, we have no. They usually like they have a bunch of data and telemetry that they can look at to see if like, hey, the tire was rumbling or something like that, or the pressure was changing. Like they can tell if like a blowout might occur. Here they said like, yeah, we had no data that would indicate the tire would do that, and this is the second time in the race. So he told. They actually played this like during the race. Between the FIA and this one of the Red Bull guys, he's like, hey, we have no data that tire was going to explode. This is the second time. So let's red flag the race, have everybody come in and change their tires. And so that's what they did. And so
Isn't Pirelli running a softer compound this year?
Yeah, well, see, there's 5 different compounds, but to make it easy for like people looking at it, there's always 3 compounds for a race, and so they have the soft, medium, and hard. But there's actually a window that those are selected, so there's actually 5 different tires. Yeah. So this window was on the softest side, so this would be like C1, 2, and 3. So these are the softest tires that Pirelli's has. So like the hard tire here might have been the soft tire in a different race.
Okay.
But these are the softest tires compounds. I don't know. This happened at Silverstone last year, where they had tire problems because they were running the softer tires, and that track can be very hard on tires. I guess this track is also weird because they run it counterclockwise. I guess it's normally clockwise how they race. Like the first turns are right, and then that's why it circles around. Whereas the British say anti-clockwise.
That's always fun.
I was
install 3 anti-clockwise from the counterclockwise, right?
But because the safety car was out for a bit, so they had run down some laps. So by the time they like ran him into the pits, they did a restart, a standing restart, with 3 laps to go, or 2 laps to go, and so they get the start off, and Hamilton he gets a really good start, gets out front. They hit the first corner. Hamilton just goes straight off into the corner, into the overrun or the overrun area, or the what do they call that? I've been saying it this whole time. The runoff area.
Yeah.
And then like they were like, "What the hell just happened?" And then it was kind of, and then Gasly and Leclerc were having like, it was like 5 corners. They were just like wheel to wheel. Like that was a really cool like race time there.
Super aggressive.
And then
each other off and all that. Yeah.
And also like I think Alonso, like he wasn't having the greatest race, but because they only had 2 laps to go and it was a start, he made up like 6 places in that start off, and he got up into 6th place. So that was cool. Raikkonen got in 10th place and got a point, like for Alfa Romeo, so that's cool. The Haas's finished 13th and 14th, but that's the highest position they're probably going to finish all year.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually they're like dead last or did not finish.
Yeah. And I guess technically, even though both Haas and Williams have 0 points, because Mick Schumacher finished 13th, that's higher than either Williams or has finished. So technically, even though they have 0 points, they're higher up in the championship standings. Because that's how that nonsense works. That was kind of it from there. And then so it ends up Perez wins his second race, first with Red Bull, which that's really cool. That legitimizes his him being Max's teammate, so he'll probably get to go next year at least, unless some crazy shit happens the rest of the year. Lewis Hamilton, because he went into the runoff area with 2 laps to go, I think he ended up in like 16th, which so basically dead last, because like 4 people I think did not finish the race, so yeah, he was in dead last. Then you had then you had Sebastian Vettel finish second. So, that was really, because he was pointless until Monaco. He had got a 5th place, and then he got a 2nd place finish here. And it's Austin Martin's first podium, so that was pretty cool. He started from 11th, so that was a really good race for him. And then you got Pierre Gasly, came in 3rd, so he got another podium for AlphaTauri, so that was really cool. And and he was fighting it out at the end there with Leclerc, so that was cool. And 4th was Leclerc, 5th was Norris, 6th was Alonso, 7th I can't remember, 8th I can't remember, 9th was Daniel Ricciardo, and 10th was Kimi Räikkönen. But yeah, so like
7th and 8th was
Sonoda and Sainz. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz. And then Fernando Alonso was 6th.
And I like so I guess what happened with Lewis Hamilton is there's some switch that switches the brake balance.
Yeah.
And they call it the magic button. And so they have this weird like Harry Potter because they have British accents and they're talking to each other and he's like, "Did I leave the magic on?"
It's so funny to hear Lewis Hamilton talk. You don't think of him as an Englishman.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't look like an English guy, and then he talks. It's like, oh wow, this is totally like what's the one guy, the actor that I like?
Idris Elba.
Yeah, he's always totally like, because Idris Elba. The first time I saw him he was playing some American character.
Stringer Bell.
Oh yeah, on the Wire. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you hear him like, oh no, he does cop shows in England. It's like, weird. Why does an American actor do cop shows in England? And you realize, oh no, he's from England. Yeah, so he basically had his brake load set to 85% rear, 15% front, and then when he went to take that turn, it's like, oh shit, no brakes.
Yeah, well, it was like his front brakes locked up, and so he just went straight off, and because he had something weird with, because the button's on the back, and he had something weird where he was like holding onto the handle with his right, and then he had like up in this claw position on the left hand side for some reason, and he accidentally hit it, and so that's why his brake balance switched and why he didn't have any brakes for the corner. So,
which that's got to be infuriating. Those F1 wheels, though, I watched a video once explaining what everything does on those. It's like trying to fly an aircraft and race a car. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
what you got to do.
Yeah, it's it's like, I don't know, F1 drivers, they always seem like jocks, so you never give them the credit they deserve for how much shit they do on the racetrack.
Yeah, it's like 2 Xbox controllers on your wheel, and any of those buttons you press can either talk to the pit crew or change the racing dynamics of your vehicle. They're not very far apart. Like, talk here and, different road course button here. It's like, yeah, I think they'd space that out a little, but they don't have any room. So
they can change the brake balance on the fly. They can change the fuel rate, how rich or lean it is. They can change a lot of shit on the car on the fly, and they usually do because, like, as the car loses fuel, you need to change that stuff, unless you just want to drive around the car, like. Which, I mean, like, it's like, well, I know the car is this way, so I'm going to drive differently. But if you want to drive exactly the same way you want to, you have to change all that shit. So,
while going 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, which basically means you're taking, one of your hands off the wheels to do shit.
I don't usually change my air conditioning when I'm on the freeway. I'm a little cold, but I don't want to reach for that button, I could tell my car to do it, and it might do that or turn on AM radio, depending on how it feels that day.
Well, there's some radio calls this weekend, especially in Mazepin, because they had one from last week, or last race in Monaco, where they were trying to tell him to change some dial setting on his car. And he's like, shut the fuck up, I'm in Monaco, I can't change shit. He's like really scared. He didn't want to touch anything other than the wheel and concentrate, because, everywhere you go, there's just a wall. So, yeah. And then this week, they told him to change the setting. He's like, yeah, I got it. We're not in Monaco. So, yeah, because usually they change all those settings on those, like, long straightaways. And in Baku, it has a ridiculously long straightaway where you can change all that stuff. So,
yeah.
Whereas Monaco, there really isn't a straightaway. Like, even the straightaway there is not straight, but...
The old curvy
straightaway.
Yeah. It's just the fastest place on the track. So there's no change in the drivers' championship because Max wrecked out and Lewis got no points, and then that ended Lewis's streak of 54 consecutive races with points.
Wow.
Yeah, which means also he's never had a DNF for 54 straight races, which is one of the reasons why he is constantly the championship. Is he never crashes out of a race or has some weird error in the car or mechanical issue. It's just magically that never happens. But
even this one, he turned it right around and got back in the race. I mean, he had no chance of catching up, but he.
Yeah, and also I haven't been covering this forever or looking at it, but from what I hear, like this mistake he made is kind of a once in a lifetime mistake for Lewis Hamilton. Like he basically just doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
But also because the Red Bulls are very close this year, he's got to be even more on the edge trying to make advantages where maybe there aren't any. So that thing in Imola where he went off the track, trying to make up spaces and fuck that up. So you're probably gonna see more mistakes this year from Lewis Hamilton than previous years. But we'll see. Anyways, that is the F1 update.
F1 update concluded.
And then there's you have a week off this week, and then you got a triple header after that. We got
France, Austria.
Yep.
Yeah,
you got the French Grand Prix, which I hear is a boring race. I forget why. I remember I play it in the video game, and I remember thinking this track's fine, but for some reason people always say it's a boring race, and I'm not exactly sure. I know it's a very flat track. There's not a lot of elevation changes, so maybe it's just boring that way, but also I guess just nothing happens there. I'm not sure why. But I always hear that France is a boring Grand Prix, although they made some changes this year, so to make it faster. And then you have 2 Austrian Grand Prix, which I'm not sure if they're going to be doing something different between them. They might do a sprint race or something. They might to change it up, because there was supposed to be, I think Hungary was supposed to be there, but then that got canceled. And then also the Singapore Grand Prix got canceled this year, so they might have 2 races in Texas this year.
Oh, okay.
So I might look into going to that second one, because the first one is sold out, but the second one, it's not on sale yet if they have one.
So the Austrian race, you know how you say that?
I'm not looking at it. I'll have to.
Because I know you're familiar with German a little bit.
Was it something about Österreich or something like that?
Yeah, Grosser Perez von Österreich. I don't know what that means.
Be greater or something. That's just, Österreich just means Austria.
Okay.
That's just that's just how you say Austria in German.
Oh.
Österreich.
Instead of Germany.
Yeah, because they have slightly separate names for what they're called. I'm not sure what Pries. Oh, it's der Steiermark. Not sure, but the von Österreich just means from Austria. I'm not really sure what the Steiermark means. I'll have to look that up. Grosser usually just means more, or maybe that just means Grand Prix in German. That's what that means.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, GP.
Didn't know. I thought it meant Greater Austrian something race.
No, that's just how you say Grand Prix in German, and then that's Steiermark's probably the city, and then Österreich is the state. Because I remember they did that last year where they'd have 2 separate ones in the same place, and one of them would be named after the city, and one of them would be named after the country they were in.
Oh, okay.
Anyways. Oh, yeah, and also because Perez won, that means that in the Constructor Championship, Red Bull goes up 36 points. So, yeah, Perez proving his worth.
Well, I'm looking at the prices for the one race in Texas, and it's all in euros. So.
Oh yeah,
it's sold out.
Yeah.
I can change it. to different money. I mean, it's 179 euros, so that's about $250 or something.
Yeah,
Well, that sucks for you. I mean, maybe you can get down there and.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's for the first race. So if they have a second race, I don't know. They haven't put up stuff for that yet. If they have a second race,
Oh, okay.
but anyways, trying to- what did everybody else have?
Well, I had Flight. I'm not finished with that book yet, but I will be. I wanted to be done pretty soon, but I'm having. I've got to find some time where I'm not like working on something where I can't have headphones on.
I did buy a game yesterday, basically solely on the name of the game.
Okay, which one was that?
Turnip Boy commits tax evasion.
What?
Okay, that sounds
It's basically like a old school Zelda spoof, but it's about a anthropomorphic turnip that commits tax evasion, and then the mayor demands restitution, and then you have to be like his assistants and do things for him, and that's basically the game is kind of works like Zelda. So, but yeah, it's fine. It's funny, but that's why you buy a game like that.
all that trouble for a local tax code violation. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything interesting that I'm just working on models. Still working on my V2 rocket. Then I've got my German Panther that I'm still working on. It's like 3,000 pieces that I'll probably be working on through the rest of the summer. Oh, I got a new Chernobyl came out.
Oh yeah,
The deactivators. It's just guys running around spraying those chemicals all over the CCM that would glue them to the ground.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just 4 guys on a backdrop. It wasn't like 23 bucks or something. So it's just a bunch of little guys with this. Just little tiny guys in suits from the 1980s. Had my first model club meeting in person in a year and a half. Got to see what everyone's doing.
Since everyone's still alive.
One person died, but unrelated.
Okay.
Just from old age.
I was gonna say from stepping on a model. Yeah.
No, nothing like that. He had I don't know, health issues.
Not to make light of it, sorry, but
No, I didn't really. But there's some of those guys in that group that are super quiet and don't talk, but they make great models. And I'll ask them, "Was like, that's really cool." Yeah. So what'd you do? Well, I painted it. That's okay.
thanks for the info. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed.
All right, I got it. But some people are really talkative and fun. Some people are just really serious about building the best tank they can build. That's the engineer types, the guys that really do like the crazy stuff. Like a lot of those guys are not into in-depth conversations about it. Yeah, it is what it is. You can see it. It's like, yeah, that's why I'm talking to you. I can see it on the internet. But yeah, so that was the first. Because they actually allowed us to use the place where we meet again, because they weren't allowing anyone to use it, and that's why we weren't having meetings. But everyone there was vaccinated, so no worries, I guess. You don't have to wear masks anywhere here anymore, so that's fine, except for at work. It's nice on a 110-degree day in the plant. Yeah, put your mask on. It's like, why? I'm one of 7 people here. I'm not even. If I can help it, I wouldn't come within 200 feet of anyone else. They would have to like project COVID through a cannon. No, we're still wearing them at work.
I saw a commercial for the new
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I saw a commercial for the new Maverick.
Yeah, that's an interesting vehicle.
Is that just a
line?
Is that different from the Ranger that they're coming out with?
Yeah, that's a C-body vehicle. That's a unibody vehicle.
So they're gonna have both the Ranger and this Maverick thing.
The Maverick's a lot smaller than the Ranger.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. You got to remember the Ranger they introduced is as big as the F-150 was in 1998.
Yeah.
So remember that green F-150 I had like, I don't know, 15 years ago or whatever?
Yeah.
The Ranger is roughly the same size as that.
Yeah.
The new F-150s are much larger. But no, the Maverick's just a C-body. I think it's front-wheel drive.
But its big thing is it's hybrid engine, right?
Yeah, it's a full hybrid engine for under $20,000. So it's not made in America, of course.
Okay.
Made in America, but it is made in Mexico. But that's, you know, all the cars I drive are. I can't do anything about that. I'm not into $900 a month car payments. So, actually, the guy at the dealership explained to me once when I was looking at a year ago or whatever. He's like, "Well, you know, Nathan, you're only thinking like you think in terms of 3, 4, maybe 5 years payoff." Because you got to remember they're going 70 months plus on these now. It's like, oh, you mean a car payment for 7 or 8 years? Like, yeah, no. I mean, I guess if I had a drywall business or something and I needed that truck, maybe. But and don't get me wrong, I love them. They're cool. I'd love to have an F-150, but I am not willing to pay more for one than I pay for my house. That is completely nuts to me.
No, it is, and I don't know how people sell as many F-150s every year. People keep buying into the, hey, I got a car loan for 7 or 8 years. That sounds like a good deal, right?
Well, a lot of businesses are buying those, right?
Yeah, and there's you got to remember too, the secondary market for used cars is at an exception. It's been at a very high value rate for the last 3 years. So some people, if they're trading in a car that's paid off, well, they're giving them $9,000, $10,000, $12,000 for that car. So that goes right into. So if you're at a $50,000 truck, now you're at a $40,000 truck, which is a very nice vehicle, and that's what a lot of what they're selling is that they're not selling the platinum, you know, with blow up sex doll component and the glass roof and all that. They don't sell hundreds of thousands though. They sell what I used to have, like the XLT, where it's a truck, and most of the trucks they sell are 4-cylinders too. So a lot of people are not using them for. Like you can do anything you wanted to with a 4-cylinder, 2-wheel drive F-150 that you could do with an 8-cylinder 10 years ago, but tow. They just don't have, because they're turbocharged. You don't want to start putting a lot of weight on a turbocharger. But if you need to tow, like a boat or a business or something, they have V6 and V8 options for you. But yeah, most of them sold are 4-cylinder turbos, and people love them. They don't have a problem with them.
Yeah, there's a weird sell job in the Maverick thing where it's about, like, they have versions that can tow stuff, but it was really about like, hey, are you a do-it-yourselfer? Are you just into crafting? And it's like using your truck bed just to put wood and shit and stuff. I was like, I mean, they know their audience they're selling to, so it's like, you don't want a truck, but you want a truck, right?
You want a truck-shaped object. Very reminiscent to me of the Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah.
Which was built on the Civic, or no. What's their big one? What's the big Honda Accord platform?
Huh.
But so it's basically a truckster. Call those trucksters with the front wheel drive. Some of them are all wheel drive, and you can skip the hybrid option and get the 2-liter turbo, which will give you more guts to pull and stuff. But you know, like a water ski, you're not pulling a rink or bass boat with it. But, you know, you're not going to put that in the water and pull out. But you know, it's a fine option. If you, as I was loading the, you know, my mower deck into my back of my Fusion, I was thinking, you know, that Maverick would be helpful right now. But
I always like I don't know, it's always seemed like, why didn't the El Camino never really take off? Or then like Subaru had a thing called the Baja, which tried to do that too, but that one was like also ridiculous because the bed on it was so short. But also, like, if you looked like, well, how much does that cost? Like, that's got to be less because you're like, there's less guts in the car because there's half of it's open to the sky. And it was like $50,000. It's like, what?
Yeah. It probably had like special suspension and like a crazy, because Subaru puts the crazy engines. And remember when they had that WRX that they sold with the wing on the back?
Yeah.
Came from the factory with this big wing, and people were kind of like, well, that's kind of silly. And then a guy put the right set of tires on it and just went like, did some mild Baja stuff, and that car was like incredible. It was like, jumping up in the air and going around. Just a factory car with some better tires on it. It's like, Oh, that's a pretty powerful car, actually.
Subaru does some weird shit sometimes. They have like, I think it's the BRZ. It's like, hey Subaru, what do you know? What do you know them for? All-wheel drive. What's this BRZ? A rear-wheel drive mid-size car. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
And Subaru will mount their engines further back, and they'll do crate. They'll put the engine like almost, it's a halfway into the compartment with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some good. They have some interesting engineering. My favorite was they let some of the local auto review guys. They turned them loose with the Lightnings because they have a few of them. Just take them, drive them around for a day, say something nice. And the one guy took a picture. He was in Detroit, and he opened the front of it because there's no engine in there, so that's like where you put luggage in the Lightning F-150. And he just took a picture of the front of it open and like, man, somebody stole my engine. And people were like, what happened? He had to explain. It's like, no, there's no engine under the hood. They just made that into a huge luggage compartment space.
Oh, where do they mount the engine in the Lightning?
And all the wheels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they're doing that. I know they've been speculating about doing that for like 10 years, but I didn't know anybody's actually done that yet. Huh, okay.
Yeah, I believe it's a full-time all-wheel drive vehicle with, I think, isn't that what Tesla does?
I don't know. Well, I remember like years ago, they were talking about electric vehicles, and basically it's like, you're talking about like the motors are basically in the wheels, and then basically it's just a giant skateboard. Like you just have this thin thing, it's just all the battery, and then you just put the car on top. But yes. I haven't seen anybody do that for like, I didn't see anybody actually do that. I thought that was just theoretical. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there could be an engine in the front, engine in the back, but as I understand it was on because if you see one with the body off, it's exactly what you're describing. It's just a flat panel with a bunch of batteries. Now in the 150, they have to be up higher because of ground clearance because it's a truck. But essentially, yeah, it's just a bunch of flat batteries with a body that bolts on in 6 places with giant lag bolts, and they're down the road you go. And they're priced to move, so we'll see. If I can lease one, I might try it, just to say I did it. But to be honest, I'll probably be getting something small. Things. I'll just go in there and like, what do you think of this? Oh, this all looks so shiny and new. Okay, what's the cheapest one to lease? That one. Okay, sign me up. There we go. I'd like to get stuff made in America, but haven't had much. Maybe an Escape. I don't know. But right now there's a big shortage of Escapes, so no time soon. I've got another year and a half before it's really a problem. Or maybe I'll just break down and get a Bronco, but those aren't badly priced either if you don't option them out. But the thing is, the top's removable on those, so that makes, and the doors are too. So that makes me think, well, this will be freezing cold in the winter because there's no insulation. It's all made to come apart, so it's not going to be well insulated. Probably be loud. I don't like a lot of road noise, and I don't need it. And for my 4-wheel drive adventures, I'd love to have those in the snow. So yeah, that's the Maverick. I don't know much about it other than how it was made, and of course, unfortunately, where it was made. It was supposed to be made here, but they decided not to do that at the last minute because GM did that, so Ford's going to do it too. It's like, yeah, fuck your contractual agreements you signed with us. It's like, okay. Let's see, we're on not us, but the Volvo truck division, not the cars. That's another division, but we make a lot of Volvo trucks here and somewhere else, and they had their last contract, which is weird because they're salaried people, their engineers and some of their supervisors are in the union, and then the employees are in the same union, but they have different contracts. So when Volvo proposed their new contract this year, it was rejected 98% by the salaried engineer and supervisors, and voted down 95% by the hourly rank and file guys like me. Then they came out with a new proposal this week, and it was only rejected 90% all in. So. And then they said, we're not negotiating, we're just on strike. So I hope, I don't know what the details are there, but I hope everything works out. I know a lot of these truck manufacturers are saying they're heading into a time of low profits and low orders. So, because a lot of these trucks have sat idle for a year, so people aren't doing fleet replacements. So Volvo's, trying to skull fuck their employees in a 4-year deal for a 1-year problem, which is typical. I mean, I don't know. I always favor labor in that. I don't care what they say about their business because I know they're all fucking liars. So. I'm sure I can read the Wall Street Journal and hear the other side of it, but I won't believe any of it because it's all, fairies and unicorns. Because no matter what they talk about, how
well, they don't make money telling the truth.
Yeah. Well, I like how they tell, and people don't understand how companies are structured, or they don't pay attention, or they don't care, because they always talk about, it's like, well, you guys got to take some cuts. It's a rough year, but the CEO, people on the board, they never take a cut, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but also remember the 1,000 other people in orbit around them that make 6- and 7-figure incomes also, they never take a pay cut. So yeah, the CEO's $25 million salary, sure, that's outsized and crazy. I think most people agree with that. But remember the people floating around him that make $700,000 a year and shit. There's literally thousands of those people in these large companies, and it's like, yeah, they don't take a cut either. Or if they do, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to kick in $50 for my health insurance. And they're making like $500,000 a year in salary, and they're just beating the table in rage like fucking scum.
What? That's WWE's been releasing people again, not just wrestlers, but like half of their behind the scenes staff. Because I guess they discovered redundancies. Well, we have 2 social network people for the website and for the TV.
No, can't do that.
And WWE has never been more profitable, and the reason for the cuts, too expensive.
Yep.
But also people are saying that they're doing this to. People are speculating that they're getting ready to sell, because one of the reasons you do that is you just cut a lot of your costs down to make it look. So when you're trying to sell to somebody, it looks good to them, oh, these costs are way down.
These numbers, they're so profitable.
Well, because so here's one of I mean, in some ways, WWE's been losing money for decades, but the thing that keeps going up is their television deals have just skyrocketed, and that's where they make all their money essentially. And so during the pandemic, they have these guaranteed television contracts that's been bringing the money in. But they haven't been traveling anywhere. So all that cost is gone to travel. So now they're about to go out and travel again. So guess what they want to do? Sell. Maybe. I don't know. Because, I mean, still it's Vince McMahon company. And, people say, he wants to take that company to his grave. And I believe that. And people will say, he's looking to get out. And I believe that, too. So I'm not a businessman. So I don't know.
Yeah, it gets hard to guess what people want to do. I don't know what a man in his 70s it's I'm gonna ride this dog out and revolutionize it one more time. It's you're already worth $1 billion and you're good friends with Donald Trump. What more could somebody want out of that?
Well, it says they're together.
He's friends with Donald Trump, and he demands all of his workers to be vaccinated. He gets to live the entire dilemma he wants to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you got to have duality. Is one of the states of man they always talk about, where you say one thing and do something else. It's always I don't believe in any of this cuck vaccine shit. Meanwhile, he's first in line to get vaccinated. Shit, fuck that. But I'll act like I stand with the guys in whatever. Somebody had a cool idea on another podcast about, I don't know if you heard that you heard about Trump's latest speech at the whatever gathering of Republicans in South Carolina or whatever.
I have not.
Yeah, well, it's basically the same bunch of conspiracy theories about how the election was stolen, all this stuff.
Oh.
Everything gets people riled up and for no reason. There's lots of stuff to be riled up about. That isn't one of them. But they had somebody had this idea, and I'm stealing this idea, and I didn't invent this, so no one say I'm not being original. But they should make like some place in Vegas. The government should build Trump like a casino where he could pretend to be president in there, and all the people can come see him there and spend all their time with him there, so that we can get all these people out of politics. Which I thought was actually a really good idea. Like they could make it some law where he is actually president inside that casino.
Yeah, it's like what they do with like in like Indian lands, but like he has his own sovereign land in Nevada.
There you go.
Sovereign nation.
And you can,
Trumpistan, yeah.
Yeah, you can go travel there and be ruled by Trump.
You can get married there and have him come and, you know, weirdly like interrupt your wedding. Like that. Only there he could do that shit that they were doing in Braveheart. What was that? Where you got to sleep with the guy's wife.
Oh, Jesus.
Scottish.
Yeah, what Kings also did, like the nightly vow, basically.
Flat
Where he,
word for it. I can't think of it, but yeah, he could do that. I mean, give your heart and soul to him in the confines of that area, and then the rest of us could. I don't know how successful that'd be, because most people that support Trump are broke. So, except for the billionaires who only support him because they don't want to pay taxes. I don't know if they want to live in Trumpistan.
well,
No
they
taxes.
don't have to pay taxes. Yeah.
No taxes, no roads, no hospitals.
Yeah.
But plenty of police.
Oh, and believe me, if Trump needs to go to the hospital, they'll be helicoptering him out to one. Because he's the leader. You have to, you know, pay for your insulin here. So, yeah, I thought that was a fun idea. Not my concept, but that's actually a good idea. Just to get all that. Because you
and then they can build a wall there, too.
Yeah, you can build a wall around it. You can have your own country. You can have your own laws. And no one's ever going to go there. They won't have, like, bilateral diplomatic relations with the U.S., but they'll be talking to Russia and North Korea all the time. So you can go live there. You can even, you know, move your trailer from wherever you're at to there.
Because they're not going to have a reliable power grid or water.
Well, parts of it will. It depends on who you can curry favor with, whether you have power that day or not. Because that's really the heart and soul of America right there. It's just currying favor with dictators, because that's what our country was founded on. We live at the whim of dictators, or we should want to. We should want to be slaves
to aspire to it.
Yeah.
But last week I took off Sunday just so I could watch AEW Double or Nothing 2021, and so that was really fun because that was the first time they had a full capacity crowd.
Wow.
So that, I mean, they've been having crowds since like October or something of last year, or maybe even before that. But what they did is that they had the wrestlers kind of be the crowd, like all the wrestlers that weren't wrestling were kind of the crowd up front, and then like up in the rafters they would have like people in bubble seating and like masks on and stuff like that. So they did sort of have an audience, but not a whole lot. This time it was like every seat full. They had people up near the ring. They had I guess I technically wasn't sold out, but like, you know, they had like 5,000 people there, and so
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was really cool because basically, you know, this is kind of the first time you had a full capacity crowd, so people are just going crazy for everything. Like they could put no foot wrong with that crowd around. So, and it was a really fun show. Like I think pretty much. Like there, I think some matches there were bits in between where it kind of slowed down, but I think like almost every match like started and ended well, or some matches were like great all the way through. But I'm not gonna sit here and bore you with details of people you don't really know. But it was a really cool show. So,
Well, good. Said it's good to see people getting out and doing stuff.
Yeah. Well, I thought about going, but then I remember it was Memorial Day, and I was like, I didn't want to like buy like a plane ticket to fly out there during Memorial Day weekend, get a thing to the show, and then go to the show, and yell for 4 hours, and come
Yeah,
right back home.
Memorial Day weekend around here was crazy. We just stayed home
Yeah.
because it was like everyone was out. My son's been in Florida for the last week and a half.
Yeah.
He went to Disney World and he went to there's a few, yeah. He got to
Mar-a-Lago. Yeah.
he went to Daytona Beach, which I thought was pretty cool. Like that's some place you hear about.
Yeah.
No place I've ever been or will ever.
I used to work with a reporter that was born in Daytona Beach, but she wouldn't tell people that because she said it's white trash. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, she's like, I tell people I'm from Jacksonville. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, I guess that's better. I don't know.
Yeah, I hear Jacksonville is like a more pleasant city because that's where like all the AEW stuff is out of, and so I hear people are like much more like positive about Jacksonville compared to every other city in Florida. Maybe because it's in the north. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And then he went to the other beach on the other side of the state, which, other side of the state in Florida is not like, that's not a wide expanse, but he was, he got to go to Disney, and now we're coming home. Soon, I hope. Drove all the way down there, straight through 16 hours.
That doesn't seem that long to get to Florida.
Yeah.
Huh.
16.5. Well, to where they're staying, because Stacy's mom lives in northern Florida, or kind of like here's where Florida's attached to the U.S. and you go down a little bit into the peninsula, and that's where she lived. Now, if you're going to like the tip of Florida, it'd be like 20 hours. But,
okay.
So that's interesting. I asked him, "How's that sun treating you?" He goes, "Oh, Dad, yeah," because I bought him like 3 jumbo bottles of that spray on sunscreen or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm down to like 1 bottle of that." I was like, "Yeah, I'll bet." Because the heat index has been like 102, 105 every day he's been there. But he's having fun and meeting interesting people. Someone gave the girl there with a beer. It's like, "Hey, you want to drink a beer?" She's like, "Sure." Then she left the guy and he was pissed. Like, I'm not. It's like, yeah, that's people you meet in Florida. Give a teenager a beer. Yeah, here, have one.
There's nothing in it.
Yeah. He went. No, it was a closed can.
Okay.
Yeah. No one's that naive. He went to the Star Wars thing at Disney World.
Oh yeah.
Got pictures from that. Yeah, they do some fun stuff there.
I hear mixed things about the Star Wars thing, but people seem to be very interested in it. That'd be cool just to walk into the Millennium Falcon. So
Yeah, oh yeah, that's what he did. There's pictures of him inside it and stuff. They did that, and yeah, he did. He was there 3 days, so they did almost the whole park, everything that interested them. It's not capacity crowds or anything. He said it wasn't too bad, but it's so expensive to go there, and then they charge him $25 a day for parking. Like, they're charging you for parking on top of that.
Yeah.
And then you had to buy a locker with $10 a day to rent one of those. It's like, oh boy. They got it all figured out.
well, I mean, if you don't charge for parking, then people just park there. So
Yeah, well, I mean, you think
I remember that was like the trick, like I could have pulled off at school, is that so there was a parking lot I had to rent, and it was like $180 a year,
yeah.
or no, a semester to just park there and get on a bus. But so because there was a flood there earlier, they had to move their studio arts thing to an abandoned Menards.
Okay.
And so that Menards, so there's a bus stop that goes to that studio arts facility at the Menards, and right next to that Menards is a Walmart. So what I could have done is parked at Walmart, walked over to Menards, got on the bus to go to school, and not spend $180. But I didn't do that because, I don't know, that just feels... I don't know. I don't like. I know it's fun to like, yeah, let's fuck over a corporation and a school. It's like, yeah, but I don't like to feel like, I don't know. It's just weird to go the extra mile just to get $10 out of something, just to make sure somebody gets fucked.
It's like where Grayson goes to school. You know, it's literally 2 miles from our house, and it's like you could take the bus there because they have public buses that go there, but for some reason, 2 miles away translates into like 45 minutes bus time because they have so many stops along the way. And then they said, oh, because it's $200 a semester to park where he's at, and it's and we just pay it because they said, oh, there's ways around that. You can park over here and over there, but it always comes with the caveat, like, I wouldn't leave anything valuable in my car. It's like, well, okay, then we're paying to park. I'm not going to have people throwing rocks through his window. That's not saving me money. It's going to cost more than $200 to replace the window or the car. That school butts up to some really bad areas. I mean, the school's tried valiantly to gentrify and buy them all, but some of them they won't close. So. But they make it nice driving in from where we are into the school. Like, that's all nice. But yeah, you get into those outer areas, man. It's like something from the Road Warriors going on out there. It sounds like, yeah, don't go over there. Don't go across the bridge. People running around in bondage gear and stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be a part of it.
Some kid throwing a razor sharp boomerang.
Yeah, just whatever. People digging tunnels, living like mole people. It's like, okay.
So I made y'all watch a movie this week.
Yeah.
Debbie does Dallas. Well, I didn't think she did enough of Dallas, but that's just me.
I was just watching. Hi, Mom, Dad.
Sorry.
We're going to talk about, Hollywood. What is it? Hollywood Hot Tubs. It's another like 70s title. Anyway. No, we watched the 2012 drama film Light, directed by Robert Zemeckis, which is okay, I'll tell you what, there's 15 minutes of this movie that makes you watch the other 5 hours of it or whatever. The first 20 minutes of the movie, the plane crash and all that is compelling. I'm going to say this movie is a hybrid movie of another movie I watched called Clean and Sober, but it's like this one has a plane crash in it.
Yeah.
Clean and Sober, they just had one blowing up on TV because of some hostage thing, but this one like is a plane crash that just becomes the movie Clean and Sober with a less coherent storyline. And it was about it. I actually liked the movie Clean and Sober. I didn't care for the people in this movie. I thought the acting was fine, but I didn't. It's like, okay, you're just going to self-destruct. Yay! For 2 hours. So yeah, that was my impression of this movie. It's like, hey, the airplane scene is cool. I don't know if that's even possible or realistic, but it sure looked cool.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie is just about junkies and alcoholics that just can't help themselves. And that's depressing and kind of sad. And so that was my take on the movie. Like, you guys can talk some more. That's just my brief take.
Well, I remember I when I first saw this movie, I hated it. I thought it was just completely ridiculous. Everything was over the top, and like the airplane sequence is cool. Like, it's like, oh, this is really captivating. Like, yeah, this is Robert Zemeckis directing, and the rest of it was just, I don't know, it's kind of like the same, maybe one of the same criticisms we had from Allied last week, where it's like, oh, he wants to make a mature movie again, and then like, but he doesn't know how like humans work. But he didn't write this, but I don't know, it's still a lot of weird. Like I don't know, like I kind of appreciated some things where I could see like parallels between like the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie, where it's like you have the one junkie where she's getting clean, and then really like he's still in the process of just admitting he's an alcoholic and a drug addict, but that only starts at the end of the movie. So there's like some interesting things there. But ultimately, like, I don't know, just nothing really feels real. It's like all magical feeling. There's like basically there's no subtext. Like they have to state everything out loud to make sure you understand what they're talking about, which feels very much like an after-school special, which is not a good thing. There's good performances, but I think they're just kind of lost by how ridiculous the movie is.
Yeah, that's one thing I had. Like, I like Denzel Washington always does a great job. Everyone else, and I can't think of their names, everyone gave a great performance in this movie with the material and the construct or confines they were working in. But I didn't care about any of. I wanted the Denzel Washington character to be more like, yeah, I'm a drunk and a drug addict, but I'm going to take this on. Look what I did with that fucking plane. Hung over. Like, no one could do that. It's not an excuse. It's not right. I'm still going to go to prison because I was fucked up flying an airplane, even though it happened to work out. Kind of. People still died. But he never really took command. He just seemed kind of pathetic. It's like, oh, here's this guy. He's fucking it up with his kid again, and his wife screwing up. And then the lady, the parallel story of her getting off heroin, like, she was interesting, but it's like, I don't
that seems jammed in there. That never really fit together.
Well, it's not compelling enough. It's like, oh, we're going to this part of the B story here.
Well, also like she's just kind of shoved in there at the beginning, where it's like, all right, was relate to this, and it's like, okay, this is where they cross paths. And the end of the movie, she's just a picture in his cell. It's like it didn't really mean anything.
She's his angel of sobriety or something.
Yeah.
It seemed to be whoever wrote this is familiar with that world. See, I'm not in that AA world because I'm not a quitter, but I know a lot of guys that work that are. And it's like, I've heard all this talk before. Like, these guys just have to constantly, they're working on being sober every waking minute of their life, which is like, well, that sounds like a no fun hobby that you're constantly engaged in. It's like, can't you decide, hey, it's Wednesday, let's not get drunk? You know, I guess they can't make that decision unless they have a meeting about it. I don't know.
Well, the writer of this, I'm not sure. I mean, probably because it's Hollywood, so he's probably dealt with this stuff before. But not necessarily a great track record. But he wrote Real Steel, which is way better than It Has Any Right to Be.
That the Rocking Robots.
Yep, which is based on a Twilight Zone episode.
Okay.
Cool. And then the other one I saw on his list that was like, oh, he wrote that. He wrote Kong Skull Island, which is another good movie.
Okay.
But all the other stuff on there is like, it's kind of crap. But so, so he's hit or miss. But, and also just the movie just seems longer than it is. Because I remember this movie being like maybe like 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours. And I think the runtime's like 2 hours and 12 minutes. It's like, oh, it seemed way longer than that.
I thought there was going to be an intermission, like music, like in Ben-Hur. Or Lawrence of Arabia or something. Are we going to have a musical intermission so I can take a leak? Or I can clip my toenail or whatever I'm thinking about other than the 75% of this movie that I'm supposed to be watching, but not engaged with.
Well, I mean, it's engaging because, I mean, in some ways it's engaging just because he keeps, like, keeps denying being an alcoholic, keeps, like, trying to fight it off and tell people, like, no, it's this the other thing. You should testify that I didn't have anything to drink and, I was like any other day. Or, I didn't blow 0.24 on the blood alcohol level or 0.17. And it finally gets up to the hearing at the end where he, admits that he drank and, she didn't drink anything and all this other stuff. And finally giving in to, not being an asshole like he was the rest of the movie for the most part. I mean, yeah, it's really interesting seeing Denzel Washington play his character. Like, I thought he was really good at it, but at the same time, yeah, what you're talking about, where they like kind of they beat you over the head with stuff. They're not subtle about anything. And yeah, I didn't really like the heroin addict and the rehab stuff that much. But I mean, I don't know. I thought this movie was fine. Like I was saying before we started the podcast, it's not a good movie, but it's not like a horrible movie. But I'm like, oh my god, who fucking made this? Why did they get money to make this? All he did make me fucking. Because every time I watch like a really bad movie, I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach like I want to throw up for like the rest of the day. I didn't get that watching this movie, so it's an okay movie.
Well, for me, like the movie starts out with just a blurry set of tits. Like that's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
And then you get a
I mean,
naked
what's
lady.
the better way to start? Yeah.
yeah.
That
But
was
also,
the original beginning of Passion of the Christ. I don't know if you know that, but-
well, also remember this was Robert Zemeckis' return to live action movie, so I thought that was just like, yeah, we're back. We're not doing kids movies anymore. I didn't know if that was like some shit he was doing. And then we got kind of the flight attendant stuff, and then like the heroin addict stuff, and then it's kind of boring. And then things pick up when he's like they're doing a takeoff, and he's like, I'm just all right. You got to lie to the air traffic controller because I need to hit this line of cloud. We need to get in between these clouds here, and then like nobody believes him, and then it works out, and he's like, all right. And then when they get into the plane crash sequence, like that's when everything picks up. It's like, okay, yeah, like this is Robert Zemeckis, like he knows what he's fucking doing. And like kind of everything after that, like it's just kind of it's very mixed. I kind of like the James Badge Dale sequence. He was the like chemotherapy patient, like they're all smoking in the stairwell. Like he was interesting, but like that didn't need to be there at all, because that kind of just gave off this message that like, yeah, God has a reason for everything, which is like I always hate that in movies, where it's like, yeah, everything's done for a reason. It's like, it's a movie. You wrote it. It's supposed to have a reason. Fuck you. It can't not have a reason. You wrote the fucking movie.
I know why there's tits in the beginning. It's something that Robert Zemeckis really missed from making animated movies.
It's why he couldn't. It's why he couldn't call her an alcoholic at the end. Like those tits, man.
Those tits aren't alcoholic. They're made of water. Alcohol will just dry them up. Come on. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, this was a movie. That's another flaw with this movie. It tried to have rough edges, but that almost turned into comic relief. It's like it was so rough, it was unbelievable. It's like, well, no one's living lives quite this desperate that are flying commercial aircraft. I mean, it sort of got like just way out of touch with what it was, because like they had the girl was trying to get heroin, and they were talking about, it's like, oh yeah, she'll do anal for $2,000 an hour. It was just like, oh, that's why is it being so edgy and weird? And then the drug dealer, played by John Goodman, like he shows up, and it's like, oh, this is going to be a dark guy. No, it was almost comic relief every time he showed up, and it was the most destructive thing the guy was doing to himself in the film. Was we got to sober you up with a mixture of cocaine and amphetamines or whatever. And I did like how the guys were like his lawyer and his union rep. They did a good job acting in this too. And they were like, okay, who's paying for this? And they're like pulling out their wallets and counting out money. Like, how much is it? And he just takes all the money. He goes, well, at least that much. And, how much drugs? What are you talking about? This is crazy. But everything that was either rough or over the top in this movie turned into comic relief almost. Like,
either intentionally or unintentionally.
yeah. It wasn't, I don't think it was written that way, but it came across that way.
Well, also here's some stupid stuff. Like this is like like you gave a college student $100 million to make a movie, and this is what they did. But like a lot of the music choices are like so on the nose that it's annoying.
Very expensive soundtrack.
But like like I said, like the first thing you see is a blurry set of tits. So what's the song playing in the beginning? It's a song called Alcohol by Bare Naked Ladies.
Okay.
That's how stupid we're coming off here.
That's gonna be deep. No one's gonna put that.
Gonna blow their minds.
Yeah.
And when John Goodman shows up, I forget the song they're playing, but like that song's like most famous for Denzel Washington and Fallen, not for this fucking movie.
Oh, Time Is on Your Side, that one? Or is it
no, it's like, please allow me to introduce myself. It's the
yeah.
Double by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Oh shit, are we gonna get a strike for
So yeah, this movie wasn't as bad as I remembered. I still don't think it's a good movie, but
would it help if I framed the movie as this was written by Sully Sullenberger? This is about his life. No?
Yeah, I was thinking about that one podcast where we talked about Castaway. We missed the obvious Tom Hanks connection that he played Sully.
Yeah.
He crashed the plane. Tom Hanks crashed the plane, survived, and ended up on a boat.
He's just going to different modes of transportation. He's going to be in a Zeppelin. It's going to be great.
When did that Sully accident happen? Was that any relation to this movie? Did that give this movie a boost at all?
Talk amongst yourselves. I'll look it up.
I want to go like 2013, 14. I don't know. Maybe I can't remember.
Andrew, you have anything else about this movie that you liked or disliked? Actually, well, I don't know. I guess it is kind of a powerful moment that, like, at the end there, where he says, like, "Hey, he only had to make one more lie, and his life would have continued without being in jail." So I kind of do like that whole dilemma at the end. He couldn't lie one more time, and it ruined his life, but it actually made it better, even though he's in jail now. So
The Miracle on the Hudson happened in 2009.
okay, so that probably would have given this movie a bit of a boost then, huh?
Yeah, is this supposed to be the Dark Sully?
I doubt
Yeah,
it.
that's Sully
It
wouldn't
was
have gotten
supposedly
it.
based off an airplane crash in Alaska more than it was based.
Yeah, somebody tried to invert the plane to save it, but it crashed anyway. So there's a lot of different accidents this movie's based on. But
Oh, okay. I didn't even know those planes could do that. I thought it just ripped the wings off or something. But
yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean,
I'm not an expert on.
Because I always thought they should have made a movie about that one airplane that tried to land in Sioux City, where like they lost all hydraulics in the airplane. The guy's like flying he's like flying the plane with like the rudders and stuff.
Fly by throttle.
Yeah,
because speed it up. Because you can do different.
They could deploy the brakes for some reason, like or the flaps, two of the flaps, and so basically he had left and right control, but that was it. And they landed the fucking plane. It still skidded off and like blew up, and people died, but most people survived. And like they put people in the simulators, and like this is the first time the way the guy landed the airplane was the first time anybody ever attempted that. He landed the airplane. They couldn't stop it because they had no hydraulic fuel for brakes, so it just kind of skidded off. But so they put people in the simulators, and like nobody could replicate it for like over 100 simulations. Nobody replicated it. This guy hits it on the first time it has ever attempted. It's like, that's fucking crazy.
I remember I watched a long documentary about that, and they said it was really weird because they actually had like engineers from Douglas.
Oh wait, now I remember how he steered the plane. Is that they had the two engines that they had control of. So he just like lowered the speed and raised the speed. So that's the only left-right direction speed they had, and that's how he landed the plane with just engines.
Yeah, but they actually had Douglas engineers who were passengers. Like, yeah, we can help you with this problem. So they kind of figured it out. But in the documentary, they said that the hardest part of that was like they had to, because the plane you had no rudder, so you couldn't kick the plane up how they land normally. So they just had to like get it over the runway and then cut the engines, and it just dropped like a stone because they couldn't do anything to slow it down this way or anything. They didn't have flaps, I think they're called. I don't know. Yeah, it was amazing.
They had no aileron controls whatsoever. They just had engines, and so they're just spinning it in a circle to run the fuel down. So when they knew they crashed, there'd be less of a fireball.
Yeah,
because they couldn't even like dump the fuel because they had no hydraulics to control the airplane. That plane had 3 hydraulic backups and they all failed.
Well, that changed the way they designed hydraulic backups in planes because it had 3 systems, but the line that got sheared from when the engine exploded or whatever happened that caused it sheared all 3 lines. Yeah. They were right on top of each other. So now they route them around the planes differently because they even had that weird thing where they flipped a switch and a little fan came out. And that was supposed to spool up hydraulic pressure, but because all 3 lines got sheared, all their hydraulic fluid just ran out, which is really weird. And then when they do those fuel dump things, that's a big. You know, they get like a ticket from the EPA now when they do that.
Yeah,
it's like $100,000 fine because they did it over what's that airport? It's like John Wayne Airport in California. So it's like right in the middle of the city. And a plane took off and something went wrong and it had to turn right back around and land. And they thought it was going to be a hard landing because they couldn't maintain altitude or something. Something was wrong with something. And they dumped all that fuel and the guy videoed it. And you can just hear like kerosene dropping on the ground all over the houses and shit. Yeah, I got a big ticket for that, which they paid because it was like, well, it was either that or 200 people died. So I guess we'll pay that ticket. But yeah, I always thought the dumping the fuel out of the wings was like, oh, is that real? And I guess it is. I never thought about it. It's like, that seems like a bad feature to have, but I guess if the switches are clearly marked, it's okay. You don't want to do that over the Atlantic or something.
Well, it's because if you're crashing, because like that's what's gonna kill you is those fires.
Yeah.
And it's all that fuel's in the wings.
Yeah, it was.
Well, that's why you have like weird like plane crashes where it's like people in the nose and the tail survive, but like everybody in the middle dies because that's just where the fire starts, where the wings are.
Oh. Okay.
Stuff like that. I don't know. Plane crashes are weird. Read Airframe. Read Airframe. One of the most interesting, boring books ever written.
About stuff that's actually going on now.
Yeah.
Because remember in Airframe, the whatever made up airplane manufacturer they had was going to give the wing to China, and you don't do that because that's your major manufacturing and your safety thing. And guess what's going on right now? Guess who's trying to build wings in China? Our friends at Boeing, the people who just went through all kinds of major.
They had aircraft that was unsafe to fly, and they had to lose money because of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, then they killed all those people because they trained them on an iPad how to land was it the 737s?
The Max?
Yeah, the ones that were crashing all over the place, mainly in Africa and stuff, because the pilots gave them iPad training, and they could, and it was like, oh yeah, the autopilot works differently now, so don't fight it, do this. And of course, everyone immediately, because it was counterintuitive how the autopilot was working from how it worked before, these planes just start crashing into the ground. Which isn't the first time. Airbus had a problem with their autopilots, where they would be coming into land or something, and the pilot would take over, and it wouldn't be fully off, and so the plane would start going like this because the pilot was trying to land, and the autopilot was trying to keep it in the air.
Well, I remember like what Airbus, the problems they had before is that, so like on Boeing's, I'm not sure, it might be different now, but like they had the big yokes and throttles in the center.
Yeah.
And it's mirrored on the both pilots. And then like on the Airbus, it's just kind of like it's like a joystick, like a flying stick. And it's just like to the left of the main pilot, and it's to the right of the co-pilot. So they can't see each other's like inputs because they're like away from each other. And so that caused crashes because they couldn't see each other's inputs. And like, you know, the pilots have kind of like different levels of experience. Whereas in a Boeing, it's like, oh, I can see what the fuck you're doing.
Well, I've known a few aircraft mechanics in my day that worked for major airlines. One of them used to be on this show. And I would always ask him about stuff when it would come up in the news or on TV. Like, what's that like? What's that? You know, he's just a mechanic. He was a mechanic. He didn't fly them, but he knew a lot about how they worked. He said, yeah, I'll tell you something about Boeing and Airbus. He goes, Boeing, you got to remember, is an American company, and all those planes are based on military planes. Says Airbus, you know, those are not based on military things. He goes, if you want a plane that'll last 50 years, you buy a Boeing. If you want a plane that'll look nice, but you'll have to replace it in 20 years, get an Airbus. They used to call them scare bus. they had all. Now I don't know if it's this way now, but back in the day, he did not like working on those. He said, "Oh yeah, that's a whole different world from Boeing." Says Boeing will have redundant. You can tell, like if you put a B-52 next to a 747, it's like there's a lot of DNA there that's the same, and including redundant systems and all this stuff. But he goes, "Yeah, Airbus, not so much." But Airbus is also a much more profitable company, so. Because Boeing's kind of propped up by their massive military contracts. But
yeah, I once saw an interesting video about like Airbus's success, and it's like it's very weird because they just basically like it's something about like selling airplanes to smaller airports, and then they just end up like taking over the whole industry by that.
It's also with Airbus is one of the few. It's one of the few things left in Europe. Is you've heard this term before, consortium, where they're run under kind of an old system of government subsidy, and then a lot of mixed, like, oh, you're going to build this here, that here, and that there, because kind of what we do with military contracts, like every senator gets a piece of the plane, and it's why the plane end up costing $50 million a piece because it's mostly transportation fees. But yeah, Airbus is one of those. Basically, how every Japanese company is run, it's like one of the last companies in Europe that's run that way, where it's not all, it's like partially owned by the government, partially owned by private investors, but they'll you can still buy stock in it, and they'll show you some balance books that like, look how well we're doing. Not super America though. We'll let our companies just run into complete bankruptcy, and then when something happens, like, hey, we can't make microchips anymore. What do we do? We'll just shut everything down. Why not? They got that plant up running. The one in Taiwan's up running 100%, and then they had a massive COVID outbreak, and they had to shut it down again. Guess who's building a $4 billion chip manufacturing plant in Texas now? It's what's his name?
Intel?
Elon Musk.
It's Bosch.
Oh,
Bosch
Huh.
is building a
the TV show.
no, not the painter from the Middle Ages. He's not.
Oh, darn. One more thing about airplanes, since we're on that subject. What do you guys think about the Boom Supersonic airline thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of that?
No.
Vaguely, I've heard about it.
They're trying to bring like supersonic like planes, like like kind of the Concorde back or whatever,
Yeah.
like kind of thing, and that's the whole basis of this airline. But naming it Boom, I'm not sure is like the best.
Yeah,
that inspires people.
There was a big joke about like naming an airline after a sound of a crash. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the problem with the SS.
Guess what? That name was probably available to trademark.
I can't believe the URL is available.
Boom.com is not a site for making bombs. No, it's not that shit.
Well, two planes came out in the 70s, the Concorde and the 747. One of them captured everyone's imagination. The other one was highly efficient. Now, which one's still flying today? Yeah, it's that. Yeah, that's gonna. They must be flying very high into the atmosphere if they want to do that continentally, and I'm sure it's going to cost a fortune. So I guess if you have to get to New York to Los Angeles in an hour, and you're willing to pay $14,000,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
like-
for Michael It's for Michael Strahan because he has to make that trip all the time. He's like,
Yeah.
I don't care what it costs.
Yeah, they have like 10 planes and they can only land at 4 airports. Might as well be that Andropov. Was it the Andropov, that huge plane, cargo plane?
Oh, the Anatov.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. That's a good idea. Well, you heard Jeff Bezos and his brother are going into space, right?
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I really hope they don't come back. That'd be awesome.
Well, I think they're going to fake their own death.
And then move to China. Yeah.
Yeah, move to
Is that another tax loophole?
Yeah, so he doesn't have to pay. So he doesn't have to pay his ex-wife.
I technically wasn't within the atmosphere.
There's no taxes in space.
Yeah, if you look in the small print of when he started the business, it's like, if I die in space, and it's like, why would you even include this? I don't know.
If you die in space, you die in real life. What the fuck are you talking about?
You're a sexy human woman.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like, yeah, you want to go ride on your own NASA? Well, good luck.
Is he even qualified to do that? Like, is he like just because he owns a company? He's like, I'm gonna go into space. Like, do you know what you're doing? Or do you just think he knows what he's doing?
Well, he's not going to
I
be
don't
flying anything. He's just going to be a passenger. And so all
He
he has
said
to...
he's not gonna fly anything, but I think he might try to.
He spent a lot of money to have other people do shit for you.
Yeah, is Alexa hooked up to the space like shuttle there?
Well, because there's been billionaires that just bought like seats on like Soyuz capsules that got sent up there. It's like, you know, it's like you can spend
that's true.
you can spend like $20 million and the Russians will throw you in space.
I remember at the end of when the Soviet Union had collapsed, you could get a ride in a MiG-25 for $1,000 because it was just nothing was worth anything there. These were multi-million-dollar aircraft, thousands of dollars of fuel, but 1,000 American U.S. dollars, they would take you to the edge of the atmosphere in a Foxbat. I mean, and there's videos of people doing it. They just strap them in, even guys my size. It's like, wow, how's it back there? I mean, they take all the shit out of it, so you can't press any buttons or anything. But yeah, that pilot will tell you, it's like, yeah, don't throw up in the plane, because he was a Russian pilot who sort of spoke English. He's like, please don't throw up on me. This is going to be really terrifying, and and they just take off basically from the runway like this and go straight up, because that's what that plane will do. It's just a rocket disguised as a jet engine. And yeah, they'd be up there, and the guy'd be taking pictures, and there's outer space. It's like, okay, time to go back now. For $1,000, I'd do that. I mean, you're taking. You can't do it anymore, of course. I don't know what kind of maintenance was being done on those planes. He's like, "Are the tires going to explode? Okay, we're good."
Oh, they probably made enough they could just throw it into a ditch and put another one on the runway.
Yeah, I mean, you could do crazy stuff like that in the 90s in Russia. It's like, if you had money, it's like, you want to own a tank? How much does it cost? Well, it cost us like $10 million to build, but $50,000?
Yeah, there was a guy last week in Germany who got a working Panzer V.
They arrested.
Yeah, they arrested him and took it from him because he rebuilt the whole fucking thing and had it working.
Yeah, you could put shells in it and fire them. And if he went crazy, it'd be like that guy.
Oh yeah, the guy that had the bulldozer that armored it and fucking like went on a rampage. Yeah,
I like the. You ever see that documentary?
Yeah, I watched it. It was really fucking. It's like, holy fucking shit, this guy. Like, he searched like you're on his side, then like, no, he's just fucking crazy.
I respect his intelligence and tenacity, but if he could only have applied that, I mean, when you can build your own tank, and including have like psychotic details, like compressed air to blow the dust off the cameras you have all over it, because you can't see out of it. The only way it could make it bulletproof was to, you can't. There's no slits or anything, just cameras.
Yeah.
And really, what ultimately stopped him was just the mechanical limitations of the vehicle, because it overheated because it was just clad in. He basically made homemade composite armor, and they tore it up, and because they didn't want people to souvenir it. But I wish they would have taken it out to a test range and seen, like, because they were talking about in the movie. Remember, the cops were calling like the National Guard. It's like, can you come out here and fire a missile at this? They're like, no, we can't do that. Like a rocket. Like, do you have an Apache? It's like, yeah, we have one. Can you? No.
Well, it's like, yeah, they got a cop on top of it. They thought they could stop it that way, and it was like, no, they didn't do shit to it. They couldn't do shit to it. Like, the only thing they could do was wait for it to break the fuck down, and the guy shot himself because he fucking didn't want to give up. So
get the demo ranch guy out here with this Barrett.
I mean, maybe. I mean, they're talking about shooting everything from shotguns to hunting rifles at it, so it didn't sound like it did anything more than graze the steel. So. And
then the guy fought him. Two guys fought him with one guy fought him with a bulldozer, and he did drive away from that because that other guy was the guy who was building the gas company next to his building. That was the reason he was pissed off, because they cut off the access to sewage. Well, that guy, he did a bunch of damage there, but then that guy who owned the gas company showed up with a bulldozer of his own, and they just started going head to head, and that guy, he went somewhere else. And then the guy at the gas company drove an earth mover straight at him, but it couldn't stop him because he weighed so much. He just plowed into him and kind of fell to the side. But they said, like, the way he welded that, he actually made like what they call homemade Shoban armor, because it was multi-layered and it had concrete and different kinds of metal between it. So I always wish they would have taken that out and fired like a rocket at it and see, like, could it have stopped the rocket? It maybe wouldn't stop artillery, but it's like that thing was because it ran through buildings. Because what stopped it ultimately was it got stuck in the basement of a building. Yeah. One side got stuck and it was overheating because I think they did shoot up the radiator. It just was too heavy. Because it was, I forget what kind of bulldozer it was, like a Komatsu or something. It was the equivalent of a big Caterpillar, like D20 or I'm sorry, D90. But
yeah, because didn't you get it for like cheap too? Because it was at like an auction or something like that.
Yeah, it was just like some excavating company was going out of business. It's like, yeah, I need that. And he built it up so big. Remember, he had to drive it out of his business, and it tore his business down because he could never get it out the door because it was so huge. And he's just like, fuck it, I'll take my business out too when I'm leaving. But like I said, I respect his intelligence and his ingenuity, but it's like you could have actually done something productive.
Yeah.
Made, a weird, some kind of weird act of vengeance that nobody died in except you.
Well, I mean, I guess at least you can be thankful for that, because then it's like, well, at least now somebody knows to watch out for that kind of shit now, I guess.
Yeah. Because he had to build those armor slats and then put them on with a crane in his garage. Like it was very ingenious. It kind of reminded me of that bulldozer I built, the IDF bulldozer that's got all the bulletproofing on it. But I don't think even that one was as strong as his.
No, because that actually had to work as a bulldozer too, not just as
Not just a battering ram.
Yeah. So I'm sure they didn't go as heavy on the armor as he did. Because like Palestinians have rockets. And I know they have like mortars and stuff like that, and other stuff they could probably get their hands on for the black market or whatnot. But I don't know if they have anything that can penetrate a tank's armor, just sitting around all everywhere.
I don't know. I don't know what it takes to penetrate tank armor anymore. I know that the missiles are getting better, but the armor's getting better too. So I don't know what works and what doesn't.
Oh, the Marine Corps doesn't have a tank division anymore, so who knows? Maybe it's not even tanks aren't even worth. They're like going the way of a battleship.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we got a lot of those drop-in missiles now that always go for the top.
Well, also like
yeah.
the Marine Corps fire teams now, they have like drones and shit, and like a grenade launcher guy that has like multi-purpose grenades and stuff like that, and new machine guns and stuff. It's just all different now.
They got the heavy weapons guy from Team Fortress.
Well, they got the new night vision now. Did anybody see that?
No.
Oh, it's just like you basically color the entire world instead of just like having night vision. So it's like all colors, so you can actually see everything much clearer with movement and everything else.
Oh, so it's not that weird green gray scale anymore?
No, it's not. It's here. I'm trying to find the video.
Because what is it with night vision? You lose depth. You don't really have good depth perception with it because of how.
Yeah, and I don't know if that one fixes this because I've only.
Well, you have it 2 eyes, so you can have depth perception, but.
Okay, so it's like everybody is a wireframe cutout, and there's like it's kind of like there's just yellow and black basically, maybe a little bit of gray, but everybody is a silhouette. It's like neon art.
Huh.
Because like the thing about night vision is like it doesn't have to be green; they just make it that color. Like
no, on
one it can be either whatever monochrome color you want. But
well, this one in the clip, everybody's like a sepia, and like explosions are blue or green flashes.
Yeah, because I was wondering if they were just doing like what I'm talking about, where like because you can change the color. If they just like take 3 different colors and merge them together, and it looks like almost like you're in reality.
Maybe.
I'll be impressed when they have those bullets from that old 80s movie Runaway where they turn corners and shit.
There's a link to it. I think it looks pretty cool compared to the old night vision because you couldn't really tell depth that way. No.
I don't know. Maybe you can't tell depth because but the Russians have those one where it has like the Russians have those ones where it has the 4 imagers on top. Which I think that creates depth perception. If you have the 4 scopes on top or whatever it's doing.
Oh, these look like aliens from a 70s movie. 70s sci-fi movie. Yeah, everyone's got a weird silhouette.
Okay, yeah, I saw this, yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's just silhouetting things better.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can definitely distinguish between
but also just looks like an alternative mode on the Predator vision thing.
True, they do have a lot of tricks.
That's where we're going. I like those ones where you see people through walls, and they just show like it's like, oh, there's a person behind the wall. You just shoot through the wall. It's like
when we did our. What they call the BSRE? It was like this training exercise at combat training or MCT, and we had like 2 different kinds of scopes that were put on the machine guns. So there was an infrared one where you could like see heat, and then there was just a night vision one, and they're huge. But you're mounted on a machine gun, so it's like, and the machine gun's mounted to a thing, so it's like, yeah, you don't have to worry about the weight. Which that's why I liked about the.
Go ahead.
That's why I liked about the M249 SAW is like it looks big, but like you can whip that thing around. Whereas, because we always had stuff where like we'd always have like the machine guns, but they weren't loaded up. But like we would have to like run somewhere, and like it's basically volunteer to like, all right, who's gonna pick up a machine gun? And like those M240 Bravos, Jesus Christ, those are fucking heavy. Because you're not just carrying the M240 Bravo, you have it comes in a bag, so it's an extra barrel, and it's this giant tripod in there too. So you're picking up like just like 80 to 100 pound rifle, and sometimes because people are fuckers, I was picking up 2 of them and trying to run with the platoon. I mean, they had shoulder straps, so I was like,
but still,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's fuckers for you. So it's just better training for me, you know. But man, the saw you can whip that thing around because it just fires 5.56. You got 200 rounds on you. I was doing like sliding stops on my knees with that thing. It was just loaded with blanks. It was just a training exercise, but
yeah. Well, either way, I mean, just you saying that and me thinking about how my knees hurt after sliding or riding on them. It's like no, thank you.
Oh yeah, well, that's why my knees are fucked for life. So
was it worth it?
No. I was doing up down drills in the fucking mountains, trying to impress these stupid fucking grunts. It's like see how fast I could get to the ground, which basically means I was just running my knees into fucking rocks. Fucking dipshits that just had wasting time to see how fast you could get to the ground. It's like, yeah, this is gonna save your life. I'm like, fuck you. And also, yeah.
In the near term, this will save your life. However, there will be repercussions later.
And then, well, also, then you watch like news footage of like Marines and stuff. It's like, hey, you gave those guys fucking knee pads, you shithead.
You can only afford the knee pads for the active duty personnel. So can't waste that money on training personnel.
No.
You might get a lot of blowjobs or biscuits in the barracks with knee pads given out for free all the time.
I remember like I had it was my right knee was just it was my left knee was terrible, and we had to do this thing. We had to throw hand grenades like on you had to like sit on a certain knee, and I was just like so afraid of sitting in my other knee, so I was sitting in my other knee, and they're yelling at me to get. They're like, "Oh fuck!" I just my knee hurt forever, and then suddenly it just stopped hurting. And it's like, "Oh good," and now every once in a while it flares up. It's like, oh yeah, I guess that never got fixed.
The self-repair nanites aren't working like they should. You know the Germans had night vision on their tanks in World War II. For their They didn't have a lot of it, but they did have it. But the biggest problem was powering it.
Yeah,
because it basically worked under the same principles our night vision does, but it was that big technology they had back then. A lot of vacuum tubes, but the light receptor plate and everything, instead of being as big as a penny, was like as big as a dinner plate.
Yeah. We had stuff like that. We had stuff like that in Vietnam. They're called starlight scopes, where they'd literally gather the light from the stars, and you see. They're the way it was just a huge contraption to gather starlight.
The World War II German ones actually threw out an infrared, like they would address the area in infrared rays, and then that plate would pick up anything that reflected back. It used a lot of energy, was not reliable, and if you were in a firefight and somebody shot one part of it, well, the whole thing's fucked. So they didn't use them a lot, but they did have them, which was kind of weird. And they were huge, probably 300 pounds of equipment. It was like unfolding a Civil War era Gatling gun. It's like, well, we have a repeating gun. It's like takes 5 people to operate it.
Well, those 5 people couldn't fire as fast as that one gun, so still.
You ever seen how they use those? You ever seen the guys do the reproductions of those? And how they have these big brass knobs that they aim with? Like, those were aimed like cannons. It's just like they were aimed into groups, and then, okay, you've got range, and the guy would click, 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 click. But if there was another dude feeding that thing could fire continuously. Like, they could fire quite a bit, because they had a way of sticking the bullets in them, and it just got sucked in. I mean, it's the same mechanism they use nowadays on modern Gatling guns, only instead of 800 rounds a minute, which is what those are capable of. These are doing like 3,600 because they're all mechanically driven. But yeah, that's what killed those Gatling guns, was they weighed as much as a cannon. They were mechanically complex, and they took a long time to set up, so they never saw a lot of use, except in the outlaw Josie Wales. Then they used it a lot there, and it weighed 300 pounds. And that was supposed to stop war. because Mr. Gatling was like, no one, after killing the number of people this thing's capable of killing, is going to want to fight a war.
That was wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Hiram Maxim had a similar philosophy when he invented the Maxim. He was like, this will stop warfare because you can't defeat these in any known way. If guys have a bunch of these Maxims in a certain way, you can't, and this was back in the era of trench warfare, you can't attack that trench. You might be able to lob a mortar or hit it with artillery, but these guys can move around too quick. It'll stop the fighting. It's like, oh, no.
And then the nuclear bomb came out. They're like, no one will go to do war again. No, we'll just make more nuclear bombs, and everybody can have them.
Well, no one's done that yet.
Well, I mean, then it goes into chemical warfare, so you kill everybody before they can launch a bomb, and then it goes into cyber warfare, so they can't do anything. Like, warfare never ends. There's always a trump card for any kind of warfare. So it's the whole argument of like, oh, this one weapon stops war, it stops people wanting to kill each other. No, it just makes people want to have that weapon and use it.
Well, you know what the determining factor in the next war is going to be beyond cyber shit?
Yeah.
Is because of the countries that are challenging us, the ultimate weapon will be food.
Yep.
Especially in places like China and India, like where they can't feed themselves. They have to buy it off the market. There's a reason we don't buy and import food unless we want it. You know, we're not dependent on our food supplies from other countries. There's a reason for that.
Well, that's what they're anticipating. The next wars are basically going to be over food and water.
Yep.
And
you're not going to want to be throwing a lot of nuclear bombs around in those wars because then you contaminate all the water and food. What are those? Ever heard of those like Jericho scenarios where they publicize things that America might do as a last strike or you ever read on any of those? They come up occasionally.
Probably, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, the one I read about China was the Three Gorges Dam. Like we always have one nuclear Trident missile submarine in that area so it can pop up and hit the Three Gorges Dam, because that's basically where all their water comes from for all their farming. So you're going to nuke the Three Gorges Dam and kill like 20 million people immediately from all the water flowing out. And then all that water is irradiated. So then about 700 million people are going to starve to death. And it's like, well, that's dark. Couldn't they do the same thing to us? It's like, no, we're not centralized in one area. They could kill a lot of people, but they couldn't do that. Thing with Chinese nuclear bombs, though, is they're like our old, what was that one that about the Damascus incident, the liquid fueled one? What was that called? That we had. It was basically half a Saturn missile. Because remember in Damascus, Arkansas, the guy dropped the wrench and it punctured the side and it set the site on fire. What were those things called?
I vaguely remember that.
Because we had the Minuteman was our mainstay, and then they had a few of those liquid fueled ones.
Oh. I want to say it's like a celestial body. It's not Saturn, but I thought it was something like Jupiter rockets.
Hold on, I got a model of it right here.
The Damascus Titan missile explosion.
Nathan doesn't have his headphones on right now.
Okay.
Missiles incoming.
Yeah, those were called Titan 2s.
Yep, that's what I was. As soon as I came up with it, you like had your headphones off. So,
but all the big Chinese nuclear missiles, the ones with the multi-megaton warhead, they only have 10 of them. But they're basically a copy of a Russian Titan, or a kind of a Russian version of a Titan, and it takes an hour to fuel them because they don't keep them fueled, because basically that's acid and oxygen that fuel something like that.
I think you're talking about this a little bit last week, but those UFO stuff, and people are speculating that China and or Russia made some sort of aeronautical advancement that's 100 years beyond America, because they're saying, well, it's not aliens. We don't know what it is, but that was one of the other more likely explanations.
Yeah.
I mean, China has the natural resources and money to throw behind it, but I don't know if they're if my company doesn't think China can make big milk packing machines, I don't know if they can make UFOs. That seems almost kind of like, well, we can't, because like you ever see the videos like Chinese people like trying to do stuff we would do with normal machines, like, oh, there's a car stuck in a ditch. Oh, let's call the giant car wrecker to come out and tow it out here. No, it's like two guys in a winch like pulling it with a rope and getting it out of a ditch. It's like, yes, technically there's probably a giant wrecker somewhere in China. But at the same time, if they're doing that at this stage, I don't think they're going to put UFOs in space.
Well, the thing with that ATIP stuff, which is what you're talking about, I've done more reading on that because that does seem like something that, that'd be right up my alley. I like weird stuff like that. But there's some things to point out about it. Is number one, it's only happened near and or around American Air Force or naval bases, and it seems almost controlled. It's like it's not happening like in the middle of the country where they have to scramble fighters and it's doing this. They're already out there doing an exercise and then this stuff starts happening. And it's always very close to large air bases or naval bases where these planes are flying out of or ships that they're flying off of or whatever. And it's only happening with like F-18s. And you got to remember F-18s were put into service, I don't know, what, 1980 maybe?
Yeah.
They're pretty old.
Yeah, they're old.
So there's a pretty good chance that instead of building craft that defy the known laws of physics, that somebody's hacked into something and can make things appear on radars and cameras or something. They're doing something like that.
Remember, Mike Judge worked on the FA-18.
Yeah. Been around a while, so.
Well, the F-18 was first flight was 1978, but it was introduced in the Marine Corps and the United States Navy 1983 and 1984, respectively.
So, yeah, it's a fairly old piece of equipment. It's being phased out also, so it's because one guy pointed out, like, well, all the things that these have in common is it's almost all F-18s, and the ship radars are all the older ships, and these are happening near military bases. They're not happening. Like, this isn't happening at NORAD, and they're scrambling F-35s, and they're being shot down by this thing. It's like this seems more like we've been hacked in some fundamental way. That's what the one guy says, which, if it comes down to aliens.
Or the instruments are reading falsely for various regions because they're all the same aircraft, it's all the same false reading.
Yeah, it's... I would more likely believe some kind of hack or some kind of glitch in the system, like you said, than I would, the Russians have created a 100-year leap in technology. We know they don't have the money they have the imagination, but they don't have the money. They don't have the expertise. So
that's why
they have the expertise, though they don't have the money. Because remember, Russians. They're very good at building aircraft, but they don't necessarily have the materials or the money to build the ones they'd like to. But the Russians still make the best rocket engines in the world.
Yeah. But the Russians don't have the manufacturing it takes to do something. When it comes to the reason they make the best rockets in the world is they made more ICBMs than anyone else in the world. And they always had a space program, which was kind of ran parallel to their military program, just like ours does. And so, they've always kept up on that. But when it comes to these world-breaking technological, where's the Russian iPhone? Where's the Russian? They don't do shit like that. And they got an economy a little smaller than France's too. So
they did. There was a concept like that what you're talking about, like a full. It was for a video game called. It was like Homefront Revolution or something like that. And they sent out these weird packages because in the game it's like North Korea takes over America. And they sent out these weird packages to the press where it's like this North Korean iPhone. It's like, see, they're the number one technological thing in this world. Their technology is so best. It's like they come out with the iPhone first. And that's why they have all this advanced technology and come over and take over America. So they sent out these weird looking supposed to be North Korean iPhones and has propaganda on it about they're invading America and stuff like that.
did that backfire on them, and they end up getting the Homeland Security come and see them? Like, hey, what are you guys doing?
I don't think that, but it was weird. I don't know. It's always weird. As like I think Bulletstorm, they send out packages of meat with a bunch of brass bullets in the meat to press. It's like, hey, here, you throw this away.
Yuck.
Anyway, I gotta get going because I got stuff, or I got other stuff I have to get done tonight before I go to bed.
All right, well, that's all I got this week. So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew?
And that.
Goodbye, America.
Bye.